The rain fell steadily outside the laboratory windows of Imperial College London. Ji-ho Park sat alone in the dim light of his computer screen, his eyes tired from staring at endless streams of data. It was nearly midnight, but he couldn't leave. Something about the numbers wasn't right. The rain patterns shouldn't look like this, he muttered to himself, pushing his empty teacup aside. The weather data from the past week showed something odd. Each raindrop's size and timing seemed too perfect, too organized. Ji-ho had been studying quantum patterns in nature for 5 years. Rain was supposed to be random, but these drops were falling like notes in a carefully written song. He rubbed his eyes and looked again at the screen. The numbers danced before him, forming sequences that reminded him of computer code. The quiet of the empty building was broken by footsteps in the hallway. Hae-Nul Kim, his fellow researcher, appeared at the door. Her lab coat was wet from the rain outside. "You're still here?" she asked, switching on another light. "It's almost midnight, Ji-ho. The security guard called me because your car was still in the parking lot." Ji-ho waved her over to his computer. "Hae-Nul, look at this. Tell me I'm not going crazy from too much work." Hae-Nul leaned over his shoulder, her wet umbrella dripping on the floor. Her eyes moved across the screen, taking in the data. At first, she frowned, ready to tell him he was seeing things that weren't there. Then her expression changed. "That's not possible," she said quietly. She pulled up a chair and sat down beside him. "Run the analysis again." Ji-ho typed quickly, and new graphs appeared on the screen. The same patterns showed up again. The raindrops were falling in sequences that looked like binary code, the language computers use. "Nature doesn't work like this," Hae-Nul said, her voice serious now. "Rain doesn't fall in perfect patterns. It's like someone is controlling it." Ji-ho finished her sentence. A loud crack of thunder made them both jump. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the windows with increasing force. Ji-ho walked to the window and looked out at the dark London sky. The city lights made the raindrops shine like falling stars. "We need to record everything," Hae-Nul said, already setting up their main research computer. "If this is really happening, we need proof." They worked through the night, gathering data from every weather sensor on the college roof. The patterns became clearer with each hour. The rain wasn't just falling, it was communicating. As morning approached, they had filled 3 whiteboards with calculations and theories. The sun was rising somewhere behind London's thick clouds, but the rain continued to fall. "What do we do with this?" Ji-ho asked, looking at their night's work. "Who would believe us?" Hae-Nul was quiet for a moment, watching the rain trace patterns on the window. "We need help," she finally said. "I know someone, a cryptography expert named Yoon-hee Lee. If anyone can understand these patterns, it's her." Ji-ho nodded slowly. Outside, London was waking up to another rainy autumn day. People were opening their umbrellas, hurrying to work, complaining about the weather. None of them knew that in this quiet laboratory, 2 scientists had just discovered that the rain might be trying to tell them something. As they gathered their things to leave, Ji-ho took one last look at the data on his screen. The numbers were still there, still making their impossible patterns. Whatever was causing this, whatever message was hidden in London's autumn rain, they were going to find out. Thunder rolled again across the city, and the rain fell harder, as if it knew it had finally been noticed. 3 weeks had passed since Ji-ho and Hae-Nul's late-night discovery. The rain hadn't stopped once during this time, setting new records for London's autumn weather. Their small laboratory had changed too. New computers lined the walls, each one collecting data from the strange rain. "Look at this," Hae-Nul said one evening, pointing to her screen. "The patterns are getting stronger." She handed Ji-ho a fresh cup of tea as he looked over her shoulder. The rain was now falling in clear sequences, like Morse code tapping on their windows. Their weather sensors showed that this was happening all across London, but the strongest signals were centered right above Imperial College. Ji-ho was about to respond when someone knocked on their laboratory door. It was Yoon Hee, the cryptography expert Newell had contacted. She was shorter than Jai-ho had expected, wearing a bright yellow raincoat and carrying a laptop bag. I came as soon as I finished looking at the data you sent, Yoon Hee said, taking off her wet coat. I've never seen anything like this before. These aren't random patterns. This is advanced encryption. The three scientists spent hours going over the data together. Yoon Hee explained that the rain was falling in patterns similar to quantum encryption codes, but far more complex than anything humans had created. But why rain? Jae-ho wondered aloud, watching the drops hit the window. Why not radio signals or light beams? Because rain is natural, Newell said slowly, as if just realizing something. Nobody pays attention to rain in London. It's the perfect cover. Their discussion was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. A tall woman in a black coat stood there, holding up an ID card. Elizabeth Blackwood, MI6, she said. We need to talk about your research. The room went quiet except for the sound of rain outside. Agent Blackwood walked in and closed the door behind her. Don't worry, she said, seeing their worried faces. You're not in trouble. In fact, we need your help. She opened her briefcase and took out several folders. Similar rain patterns have been detected in Tokyo, Seoul, and New York, but London's signals are the strongest. We think whoever is sending these messages chose this city for a reason. Jai-ho looked at the documents. Weather reports from around the world showed the same patterns they had found, but weaker. London was special somehow. We think it's a test, Agent Blackwood continued. Someone or something is watching to see if we're smart enough to notice these patterns. Yoon Hee sat down at her computer and started typing quickly. The encryption is changing, she said. It's responding to us studying it. Thunder rolled across the sky, making everyone look up. The rain was falling harder now, its patterns more distinct than ever. Whatever is sending these messages, Newell said, they know we've noticed them now. Agent Blackwood nodded. That's exactly what we think, and we believe they're waiting to see what we do next. Jai-ho walked to the window, watching the glittering raindrops fall through the light of the street lamps. Each drop now carried a piece of a message they didn't yet understand. But they would figure it out. They had to. We need more equipment, he said, turning back to the group. And we need to work faster. Winter is coming. And when the rain stops, Yoon Hee finished, we might lose our chance to answer. Outside, the London sky grew darker, and the rain continued its mysterious dance, carrying secrets from beyond the stars. The laboratory had become their second home. Empty teacups and takeaway containers sat beside powerful computers. Yoon Hee hadn't left the building in 3 days, working non-stop on breaking the rain's code. Newell and Jae-ho took turns bringing her food and fresh clothes. I think I've found something, Yoon Hee said one rainy morning. Her voice was tired but excited. The others gathered around her computer screen, where lines of decoded data scrolled past. The rain isn't just carrying random patterns, she explained, pointing to specific sections of code. There are repeating sequences here, and here. They're like paragraphs in a letter. Agent Blackwood arrived just as Yoon Hee was running her final decryption program. The agent's usual neat appearance was slightly messy today. Even MI6 agents got tired after weeks of endless rain. Show me what you found, Blackwood said, placing fresh coffee on everyone's desks. The small gesture made them all smile. She had become part of their team over the past weeks. Yoon Hee pressed enter on her keyboard. The room went quiet except for the gentle tapping of rain outside. Numbers and letters appeared on the screen, then began arranging themselves into clear text. Newell read the first line aloud. We are watching. Jai-ho felt a shiver run down his spine. After all their work, after all the theories and guesses, here was proof. Something out there was trying to talk to them. The message continued. Your world interests us. Your rain carries our words. Your response will be evaluated. Evaluated? Newell asked, looking worried. "What does that mean?" "Keep reading," Agent Blackwood said quietly. More text appeared. "We observe how you handle subtle changes, how you notice patterns, how you work together. Your rain season is our window of observation." Jai-Ho walked to the window, watching the raindrops fall. Each one now felt important, precious. They weren't just water anymore. They were letters in an alien conversation. "There's more," Yoon-hee said, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. "They've hidden additional messages inside the main one. It's like they're testing how deeply we can look." The team worked through the morning, uncovering layer after layer of the message. Each piece revealed more about their mysterious observers. They learned that the aliens had been watching Earth for centuries, using natural phenomena to study human development. But why reveal themselves now? Hae-Newell wondered, drawing diagrams on their whiteboard. Why start communicating? "Because we're ready," Jai-Ho said slowly. "Think about it. 100 years ago, we wouldn't have had the technology to notice these patterns. Even 10 years ago, we might have missed them." Agent Blackwood nodded. "They waited until we were advanced enough to understand their message. The question is, what do we do now?" Thunder rolled across London, louder than before. The rain intensified, as if responding to their discovery. On their computers, more data poured in. The message was still coming, still hiding secrets in every raindrop. "We answer them," Yoon-hee said firmly. "But first, we need to understand everything they're trying to tell us. Every layer, every hidden meaning." Outside, London's streets glistened under the eternal rain. Somewhere above the clouds, someone was waiting to see what humanity would do next. Their test had begun, and every raindrop was part of the question. Agent Blackwood's flat in Notting Hill became their new meeting place. The laboratory wasn't safe anymore. Too many curious eyes were watching them. The apartment's warm lights and soft furniture made a pleasant change from the cold laboratory. "More tea?" Blackwood asked, holding up a steaming pot. The clock on her wall showed midnight, but none of them felt tired. Yoon-hee sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by papers covered in complex codes. Hae-Newell and Ji-Ho shared the comfortable sofa, their laptops showing streams of rain data. "The patterns are appearing worldwide now," Hae-Newell said, turning her laptop so everyone could see. "But they're different in each location. London's messages are like the main conversation. Other cities are receiving what looks like background information." Jai-Ho picked up a fresh report from MI6. "Tokyo is getting mathematical sequences. New York is receiving what looks like star maps. Seoul's rain carries something that might be historical data. They're not just testing us," Yoon-hee said, looking up from her papers. "They're teaching us. Each city is getting pieces of a larger message. But why spread it out like this?" Thunder shook the windows of the apartment. The rain had been falling for 45 days straight now. London's reservoirs were full, and the Thames was higher than usual. "I think I understand why," Blackwood said, passing out fresh cups of tea. "They're testing our ability to work together. Different countries, different scientists, all needed to solve one puzzle." A knock at the door made everyone freeze. Blackwood checked her security screen and relaxed. "It's just the evening delivery," she said, opening the door to accept a package. Inside the package were printouts from weather stations around the world. The team spread them across Blackwood's dining table, creating a map of global rain patterns. "Look at this," Hae-Newell said suddenly. She pointed to a sequence that repeated across different cities. "It's like a signature. The same pattern appears in every location, but it's hidden differently each time." Yoon-hee moved to the table, her eyes scanning the data. "She's right. It's like they're signing their messages, proving they all come from the same source." Jai-Ho started entering the repeated sequence into his computer. "If we can understand this signature, maybe we can learn more about who they are." The night grew deeper, but the team kept working. The sound of rain against the windows became a gentle backdrop to their discussion. London slept around them, unaware that in this cozy apartment, Humans were slowly learning to read messages from the stars. "Wait, Yoon," he said suddenly. Her fingers flew across her keyboard. "The signature. It's not just a signature. It's coordinates. They're telling us where they are." The team gathered around her screen. Numbers and symbols resolved into a clear pattern, pointing to a location in space. "That's why they needed the rain," Jaiho said softly. "Water molecules can hold quantum information better than any computer we've built. They'd been using the rain to send us complex data that couldn't travel any other way." Agent Blackwood looked out at the rainy London night. "So now we know where they are. The question is, what do they want us to do with this information?" Thunder answered her question, rolling across the city like a drum. The rain fell harder, carrying more messages, more secrets, more tests. Morning was coming, but none of them would sleep. There was too much to learn, too much to understand. The news about the strange weather had spread worldwide. People were scared. 50 days of non-stop rain in London had made everyone nervous. Television stations showed endless reports about climate change and natural disasters. But Jaiho knew the truth was far more interesting. He sat in Agent Blackwood's living room early one morning, watching raindrops slide down the windows. The others were asleep after working through the night. Something had been bothering him about the alien messages, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. "You're thinking too hard again," Hae-Newell said, walking in with 2 cups of coffee. She had noticed his troubled expression. "Why rain?" Jaiho asked, accepting the coffee. "Of all the ways they could contact us, why choose something so simple?" Hae-Newell sat down beside him, watching the rain. "Maybe that's exactly why they chose it." Their conversation woke Yoon-hee, who had fallen asleep on the couch, surrounded by papers. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. "What are you two talking about?" "Jaiho might be onto something," Hae-Newell said. "We've been so focused on the messages themselves, we haven't asked why they chose rain as their messenger." Agent Blackwood emerged from her study, looking interested. "Go on," she said, joining them. Jaiho walked to the window, touching the glass where the raindrops fell. "Rain is part of every human culture," he said slowly. "Every civilization in history has depended on it. We've built our lives around it. We celebrate it, fear it, pray for it, write songs about it." "And," Blackwood prompted. "And it's beautiful," Jaiho continued. "The aliens aren't just testing our scientific ability. They're testing whether we can see beauty in something as simple as rain, whether we can find patterns in something we see every day." Yoon-hee's eyes widened. She rushed to her computer and pulled up the original messages. "Look at this," she said. "The way they structured the code. It's not just efficient. It's elegant, like poetry written in mathematics." Hae-Newell joined her at the computer. "The patterns repeat like music," she said. "They didn't just want us to decode the message. They wanted us to appreciate how it was written." Agent Blackwood nodded slowly. "A test of both intelligence and awareness. They want to know if we can understand the message hidden in the rain, but also if we can appreciate the beauty of how it's delivered." Thunder rolled gently across London, softer than before. The rain seemed different now that they understood its purpose better. Each drop wasn't just carrying data, it was part of a larger artwork, a poem written in water and light. "We need to show them we understand," Jaiho said. "Not just the mathematical patterns, but the beauty of what they've created." "But how?" Hae-Newell asked. Jaiho smiled for the first time in days. "We write our own poem," he said. "Using their language of rain and numbers, we create something that shows we see both the science and the art in their message." The team spent the rest of the morning planning their response. They would need help from weather stations, quantum computers, and artists too. Their answer had to show humanity's ability to merge science and beauty, just as the aliens had done. Outside, London's rain continued its gentle fall, each drop now recognized as part of something greater, not just a message from the stars, but a test of humanity's ability to find wonder in the ordinary. The weather forecast on Agent Blackwood's television showed what they all feared. Winter was approaching. Cold winds from the north would soon arrive, turning rain into snow. Their time was running out. 3 days, Haynul said, looking at the weather maps. Maybe 4, then the temperature will drop below freezing. She stood in Blackwood's kitchen, where they had set up their newest computers. The counters that usually held cooking supplies now supported complex weather monitoring equipment. Jai-Ho watched the rain outside. It had become precious to him now, each drop carrying messages they were still trying to understand. If the rain turns to snow, will we lose the signal? He asked. Yoon-hee looked up from her work. She had dark circles under her eyes from staying awake 3 nights in a row. Snow crystals are too different, she explained. The aliens chose rain for its simple beauty. Snow is too complex. It would change their message. Agent Blackwood entered the kitchen carrying fresh reports from other cities. Tokyo's rain has stopped, she announced. New York too. The patterns are disappearing around the world. London is one of the last places still receiving messages. The team gathered around the kitchen table, spreading out the global reports. The alien messages were following the pattern of autumn, moving south as winter approached in the northern half of the world. There's something else, Haynul said quietly. She pointed to her computer screen. The rain patterns have changed. They're showing us the same message over and over now, like a countdown. Jai-Ho leaned closer to see the screen. The familiar patterns of alien code now pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat in the rain. They're waiting for our answer, he said. But what are they testing? Yoon-hee wondered. We know they're watching how we handle the rain, how we see its beauty. But there must be more. Thunder rolled across London, softer than before, almost gentle. The rain tapped against the windows in its now familiar patterns. After nearly 2 months of constant rain, the team could almost read the messages without their computers. Think about it, Jai-Ho said, walking around the kitchen. They chose rain, the most common thing in London. Something everyone complains about, but nobody really looks at. They hid complex messages in something we see every day, but never truly observe. A test of perception. Agent Blackwood nodded. Whether we can find extraordinary things in ordinary places. Haynul suddenly stood up straight, her eyes wide. That's not all, she said. The rain, it's not just carrying messages. It's changing as we study it. The patterns are responding to our observations. Yoon-hee quickly typed commands into her computer. Data flowed across the screen, confirming Haynul's words. The alien messages were indeed changing, becoming more complex as the team learned to understand them better. They're not just testing our ability to observe, Jai-Ho said slowly. They're testing our ability to learn, to grow, to see more than what's on the surface. Outside, the rain continued its gentle fall, but the air felt colder. Winter was coming, bringing with it silence and snow. They had 3 days, maybe 4, to prove humanity could pass this test, to show they could see the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. The Imperial College laboratory buzzed with activity. Scientists from around the world had arrived to help, bringing advanced equipment and new ideas. Jai-Ho watched as they transformed the simple lab into something that looked like a movie set, with screens covering every wall and cables running everywhere. The weather stations are ready, Haynul announced. She had spent the last 24 hours setting up special devices on every tall building in London. These machines could create small rain clouds, perfect for sending messages back to the aliens. Yoon-hee sat at the main computer, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. The quantum computer is online, she said. We can start encoding our message whenever you're ready. Agent Blackwood stood by the window, watching the natural rain fall. The temperature was dropping faster than expected. They might have only 2 days left before the rain turned to snow. Are we sure this will work? She asked. Jai-Ho nodded slowly. The aliens chose rain because it's simple but beautiful. Our response needs to be the same. He walked to the main screen, where their message was ready to be sent. They had worked hard to make it perfect, a combination of mathematics, art, and human emotion. "Everyone ready?" Hey Newell asked, her hand hovering over the main switch. The team nodded. Scientists around the room held their breath. With a soft hum, the machines came to life. Outside, small clouds began forming above London's buildings. These weren't natural clouds. They were crafted by human technology, designed to create rain that carried their message. "First sequence starting now," Yoon-hee announced. The artificial rain began to fall, each drop encoded with data. But this wasn't just scientific information. They had filled their message with human culture, poetry from every language, music transformed into mathematical patterns, and art converted into digital code. The natural rain seemed to respond. The alien patterns changed, becoming more complex, more beautiful. It was like two songs playing together, creating new music. "They're receiving it," Hey Newell said excitedly, watching the data flow across her screen. "The patterns show they're accepting our transmission." Hours passed as they sent their message. They showed the aliens how humans saw beauty in small things, how they found patterns in nature, and how they turned mathematics into art. They sent images of rain in human culture, paintings, poems, and songs about rainy days. "Look at this," Yoon-hee called out suddenly. The alien rain was changing again. The patterns were shifting into something new. Jae-ho rushed to her computer. The incoming message was different now, simpler, clearer, almost like a conversation. "They're adapting their communication to match our style," he said softly. "They're meeting us halfway." Agent Blackwood smiled for the first time in days. "So they're learning about us, just as we're learning about them." Outside, the two types of rain fell together, natural and artificial, alien and human, creating patterns more beautiful than either could make alone. The clouds above London glowed softly, painted by the setting sun. "Now we wait," Hey Newell said, watching the data flow between Earth and the stars. "We've shown them who we are. We've proven we can see the extraordinary in the ordinary." The team gathered by the window, watching their message rise into the darkening sky. They had done everything they could. Now it was up to their mysterious observers to decide if humanity had passed their test. The morning brought with it a strange silence. After 2 months of constant rain, the quiet felt unusual. Jae-ho stood at the laboratory window, watching the last raindrops fall from a clearing sky. The air was cold now, winter's breath touching the edges of London. The temperature's dropping faster than expected. Hey Newell said, checking her weather monitors. "We'll have snow by evening." She looked tired but happy. They had worked through the night, sending their message to the stars. Yoon-hee sat at her computer, watching the last pieces of alien code come through the rain. "The patterns are changing again," she announced. "Something's different." Agent Blackwood arrived with breakfast for everyone. Hot tea and warm pastries from the cafe downstairs. The smell of fresh food made them realize how hungry they were after their long night of work. "Any response to our message?" she asked, setting down the food. Before anyone could answer, all their computers started beeping at once. The last rain shower was carrying something new. A final message from their observers. "It's so simple," Yoon-hee said, reading the decoded text. "Just 3 words. You understand now." The team gathered around her screen, watching as more words appeared. "Look up." They rushed to the windows. The rain had stopped completely now, but something else was happening in the sky. The gray London clouds were breaking apart, revealing patches of clear blue. And in those patches, impossible colors began to dance. "Aurora," Jae-ho whispered. "They're making an aurora in broad daylight." The northern lights should have been impossible this far south, and never in daylight. But there they were, ribbons of green, blue, and purple dancing across London's sky. The colors moved like water, like rain turned to light. People came out of their buildings, looking up in wonder. Cars stopped in the streets. Everyone in London, from business people to school children, stood watching the sky's beautiful display. "It's their way of saying goodbye," Hey Newell said softly. and hello. The aurora formed patterns they recognized, the same mathematical sequences they had found in the rain, but now painted in light across the sky. The aliens were showing them that they had passed the test, showing their messages could take many beautiful forms. Agent Blackwood's phone buzzed with messages from around the world. Similar auroras were appearing everywhere, each with patterns unique to the messages that city had received. The aliens were connecting their global conversation into one final display. "Look at what they wrote," Yoon-hee said, pointing to her screen where the last message was still appearing. "Your world sees beauty in simple things. You understand patterns in nature. You work together to solve mysteries. You are ready for what comes next." "What comes next?" Hae Newell asked. Jai-ho smiled, watching the colors dance above London. "I think we'll find out soon." This wasn't just a test. It was an invitation. The aurora continued its display as the first snowflakes began to fall. Winter was coming to London, but it wouldn't be the same as before. Humanity had learned to look more carefully at the world around them, to find wonder in ordinary things, to see messages in raindrops. Above them, the lights danced one last time, forming a pattern that looked like stars. A map, perhaps, or a promise of future conversations. Then the aurora faded, leaving behind a crisp, clear winter sky and a world forever changed by 60 days of rain.